Bloodstained scrubs usually mean a failed surgery, not a successful kill count. But in the frozen hills of Appalachia's West Virginia, nothing was what it seemed. The wind howled through the valleys like a wounded animal. Inside Miller's Ridge Field Hospital, the fluorescent lights buzzed with the rhythm of a dying heartbeat. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in February, and the night shift was just beginning. Meredith Crane moved through the corridors like a ghost, 42 years old. Gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Eyes the color of shattered glass, dull, fragmented, impossible to read. Her scrubs were faded blue, worn thin at the elbows. Soft-soled shoes made no sound on the linoleum. To the staff at Miller's Ridge, she was just Meredith, the night nurse who never spoke unless spoken to, never laughed at crude jokes, never flinched when the wind rattled the windows or when the ancient heating system groaned like artillery in the distance. She checked the IV drip on Mrs. Gable in bed 3. Flow rate correct. Vitals stable. The old woman slept peacefully, her weathered hands folded across her chest. Coal miner's widow, lung disease, 3 months, maybe 4. Meredith adjusted the blanket with economical precision, every movement deliberate, no wasted motion. She had been doing this for 6 months now. Before Miller's Ridge, it was a clinic in Montana. Before Montana, a rural hospital in Nevada, always moving. Always the night shift, always alone. The hallway stretched before her, empty and quiet. She walked to the window at the north end, peering through her reflection at the darkness beyond. The parking lot was poorly lit. Security camera 3 had a blind spot near the storage shed. The perimeter fence was 200 yards out, chain link rusted at the base. She wasn't looking at the scenery. She was looking at the sightlines. Old habits. They never die, they just wait. Meredith, she turned. Dr. Garrett Holloway stood in the doorway of the nurse's station, tablet in hand. 34 years old, brilliant, arrogant. Fresh from a prestigious residency in Boston, slumming it in Appalachia to pad his resume before returning to civilization. He didn't look up from his screen. Mrs. Gable's vitals are stable, Meredith said, her voice a low rasp. I can see that. You logged it 3 times. Once would be sufficient. He spun his pen between his fingers, a nervous habit that made him look younger than he was. You hover, Meredith. It makes the residents nervous. She didn't answer. Holloway finally looked up, his expression somewhere between irritation and concern. The concern was performative. The irritation was real. Look, I appreciate your thoroughness, but you need to understand this isn't a combat zone. It's a small rural hospital. We follow protocols. We don't improvise. He paused, searching for the right word. We don't go off book. Meredith's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Understood, doctor. Good. Take your break. You've been on your feet for 6 hours straight. He returned to his tablet. You're not in your 20s anymore. Pace yourself. She walked away without another word. The break room was empty. Stale coffee in a pot that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. Flickering fluorescent light. A table scarred with cigarette burns from back when smoking indoors was still allowed. Meredith sat in the corner, back to the wall, facing the door. Always facing the door. She pulled a protein bar from her pocket, ate mechanically. No pleasure in it, just fuel. The TV on the wall played the news with the sound muted. Stock market numbers, political scandal, weather forecast, more snow coming. The door swung open. Ellie Price bounced in, all 26 years of energy and optimism that hadn't yet been ground down by the world. Hey, Mer. Oh my God, you will not believe what just came through on the radio. She grabbed a coffee cup without checking if it was clean. We're getting a transfer tonight. Some VIP from a convoy accident, FBI escort, and everything. Meredith's spine stiffened, so subtle that Ellie didn't notice. When ET, 20 minutes. Trauma bay's being prepped. Doctor, Holloway's freaking out. He's never handled a federal case before. Ellie laughed. You want in? I know you love the exciting stuff. No, I'll handle the recovery ward. Keep the regular patients stable. Ellie's smile faltered slightly. You sure this could be? I'm sure. The younger woman nodded, used to Meredith's abruptness. Okay, well, if you change your mind. She grabbed her coffee and left, humming something cheerful and out of place. Meredith sat motionless for 30 seconds after the door closed. Then she stood, walked down the hallway, past the occupied rooms, past the empty ones, to the supply closet at the very end of the corridor, the one marked authorized personnel only. She punched a 6-digit code into the keypad. The lock clicked. Inside the closet was exactly as it should be. Sterile gauze saline crates, boxes of gloves, ventilator parts, blood pressure cuffs, everything in its proper place. Everything except this gray hard shell case on the bottom shelf labeled Ventilator parts do not touch. Meredith knelt, ran her fingers over the combination lock. Didn't open it, just needed to know it was there, that it was secure. Inside that case was a disassembled CheyTac M200 intervention sniper rifle. Effective range 2,500 yards. Chambered in .408 CheyTac, capable of punching through engine blocks. Also inside a Glock 19 with 3 magazines of hollow point rounds. A K-bar combat knife. $400 in cash. A passport with her face and a name she'd never use again. The name on the passport was Alexandra Devereaux. That woman had died 6 years ago in Syria. Or so the report said. Meredith stood, locked the closet, walked back down the hallway as if nothing had happened. Her heart rate hadn't changed. Her breathing remained steady. The mask was perfect. It always was. The radio crackled to life at 12:17 a.m. Miller's Ridge, this is Federal Transport Alpha 2. We are 3 miles out. Be advised we have sustained hostile wireless contact. Repeat, we have taken fire. Multiple critical injuries. Prepare trauma bay for immediate triage. The calm shattered. Dr. Holloway jumped from his chair, clipboard clattering to the floor. Code blue, everyone to the bay. Move, move. Nurses scrambled. Residents shouted conflicting orders. Someone knocked over a tray of instruments. The organized chaos of a small hospital suddenly thrust into a situation it wasn't equipped to handle. Meredith didn't run. She moved with terrifying fluidity, grabbed a trauma kit, walked toward the entrance. But her eyes weren't on the medical supplies. She was watching the wall monitors showing the security camera feeds. Camera 4 static, camera 5 offline, camera 2 showing the access road, but the angle was wrong. Someone had moved it. It's not just a convoy accident, she whispered to herself. The old instincts flared up like a struck match. They're blinding us. She looked at Ellie, who was pulling on gloves with shaking hands. The girl was terrified, but trying not to show it. Ellie, the younger nurse, looked up. Meredith grabbed her arm. Not gently. Listen to me very carefully. When they bring the patient in, I need you to go to the rear supply room. Lock the door. Do not open it unless you hear my voice. My voice exactly. Understand? What mirror they need all hands. Do you understand? Ellie's eyes went wide. She'd never heard that tone from Meredith before. It wasn't a nurse's voice. It was something else. Something that didn't belong in a hospital. Yes, okay. Go, now. Meredith released her. Ellie stumbled backward, then ran toward the rear of the building. The front doors burst open. Rain and wind whipped inside. 4 men in tactical gear dragged 2 gurneys through the entrance. Behind them, a 5th man marched in with a rifle raised, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. Secure the doors, he roared. We've got hostiles in the wire. Lock it down. The man was Agent Derek Sutton, FBI, 48 years old, 20 years in federal service. Square jaw, close-cropped hair, eyes that had seen too much and now saw everything as a threat. The storm had breached the hospital. But the storm outside was nothing compared to what was coming. On the first gurney lay a woman in a torn gray suit. Natalie Brennan, 32 years old, accountant. She was unconscious, chest heaving, a dark stain spreading across her abdomen. Gunshot wound, high entry, exit wound visible through the fabric. On the second gurney was one of Sutton's agents. Young, maybe 25. His tactical vest was shredded, shrapnel wounds across his torso, breathing ragged. I need O-negative stat. Dr. Holloway shouted, hands already moving to cut away Natalie's shirt. Where's the blood bank key? Someone get me. Meredith appeared at his elbow. Saline bag already spiked. She slapped it into his hand. Focus, doctor. She's tensioning. You need to decompress the chest now. Holloway looked at her wild-eyed. I know that. I'm just... He fumbled for a needle, hands shaking. Meredith watched the doors. Agent Sutton was shouting orders to his remaining men. Only 3 of them were still standing. Ragged, exhausted, low on ammunition. Sarge, report. Sutton barked into his radio. Static. Command, this is Sutton. We are at Miller's Ridge, requesting immediate air support. Over. More static. He slammed his fist against the wall. Damn it, they're jamming the signal. He turned to the room. His eyes scanned the terrified medical staff until they landed on Meredith. He paused. Something flickered in his gaze. Recognition. Suspicion. The moment passed too quickly to tell. Who's in charge of this facility? Dr. Holloway, Meredith said, pointing, currently trying to stop an arterial bleed. Sutton stepped over a coil of tubing boots, tracking mud and blood across the floor. Doctor, we have maybe 5 minutes before the main force hits us. We were ambushed 2 clicks out. This wasn't random. They knew the route, they knew the cargo. He pointed at the unconscious woman. That woman is Natalie Brennan. She's holding testimony that will put 50 people in federal prison. If they take her, a lot of very powerful people walk free. Do you understand what I'm saying? Holloway looked up pale. This is a hospital. We have protection under the Geneva Convention. Sutton laughed, a dark, humorless bark. The men coming through that rain don't care about conventions. They're mercenaries. Private contractors paid by people who have everything to lose. They want her alive so they can make her disappear properly. And they want everyone else dead to cover their tracks. A sudden thunderous boom shook the ground. The lights died completely. Screams erupted from the nursing staff. Emergency red lights bathed the room in a bloody glow. "Generators down," one of the FBI agents shouted from the doorway. "They hit the fuel tank," Meredith said. Her voice was calm, too calm. It cut through the panic like a scalpel. She moved away from the table. "Major, how many hostiles?" Sutton looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. He saw the way she stood, feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced, hands free, ready. That wasn't a nurse's stance. Platoon strength, maybe 24, heavily armed, night vision, body armor. And you have 3 men, 3 agents. Sutton corrected, though his grimace betrayed his doubt. "They won't come through the main entrance," Meredith said. She walked to the wall map of the facility. Her finger traced the eastern wing. "They cut the power to kill the perimeter lights. They jam the communication so you can't call for extraction. They want to funnel you." She pointed to the recovery ward. "The drainage ditch runs right past the east wall. The rain will have filled it, masking heat signatures from thermal scopes. They'll breach here, flank your position, catch you in a crossfire." Sutton narrowed his eyes. "How do you know the terrain that well, nurse?" "I take walks. At night in the winter around a drainage ditch." Meredith met his gaze. Didn't blink. "If you put your men at the front door, Agent Sutton, you'll be dead in 10 minutes. And why should I listen to a crack? Glass shattered in the hallway leading to the east wing. A thud followed, the sound of a body hitting the floor. Meredith didn't say, "I told you so." She just looked at him. "Because I'm right." "Contact. East wing." An agent screamed, firing his rifle blindly down the dark corridor. Muzzle flashes lit up the smoke like lightning. The engagement had begun. "Get Brennan to the secure room in the back," Sutton yelled, raising his rifle. Suppressing fire. Bullets tore through the thin drywall of the hospital. Dr. Holloway tackled Ellie. No, wait. Ellie was already gone. He tackled a resident, dragging them behind the metal reception desk. Meredith didn't take cover. While the FBI agents focused their fire down the hall, she slipped backward into the shadows. Silent. Invisible. A ghost reverting to her true form. She needed to get to the supply closet. She reached the door, punched in the code by feel. The lock clicked. She slipped inside and bolted it behind her. The sounds of war were muffled here. Screaming, gunfire. It all felt distant, like a memory, like Syria. Always like Syria. Meredith took a breath, closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, she exhaled the persona of the weary middle-aged Kirschbaum. She popped the latches on the hard case. There it was. The matte black finish of the Shaytac M200 gleamed in the dim light. She worked with practiced efficiency. Barrel attached, bolt inserted, scope mounted, magazine loaded with .408 Shaytac solid brass rounds. Each bullet capable of punching through a concrete wall. She didn't chamber a round yet. The rifle was too large for close quarters. Instead, she grabbed the Glock 19, checked the chamber, loaded a fresh magazine, screwed a suppressor onto the barrel. She stripped off her scrub top. Underneath, she wore a black thermal undershirt. She grabbed a roll of duct tape and taped spare magazines to her thigh. No tactical rig. Hadn't needed one in 6 years. Wouldn't need one now. She looked at her reflection in the metal cabinet. The tired eyes were gone. The predator was back. "Time to go to work," she whispered. She opened the supply closet door. Weapon raised. Moving not like a healer, like the Reaper herself. The hospital was no longer a place of healing. It was a kill box bathed in emergency crimson light. The air, once smelling of antiseptic, now reeked of cordite and burning plastic. Meredith moved through the shadows of the East Wing corridor, like ink spilled on a dark floor. Delta Force operational detachment training didn't just teach you how to shoot. It taught you how to become part of the environment, how to slow your heart rate until you were biologically invisible, how to see in the dark, not with your eyes, but with your mind. Up ahead near the shattered window where they'd breached, 2 figures moved. Big men, expensive non-standard tactical gear, ceramic plating, fast helmets with mounted night vision goggles. These weren't desperate locals. These were Tier 1 private contractors, expensive professionals. Clear right, the point man whispered into his throat mic. No resistance yet. Copy that, came the response in his earpiece. Volkov wants the target secured in 5. Burn the rest. Meredith didn't breathe. She pressed herself into a shallow alcove housing a fire extinguisher. The point man walked right past her. His NVGs were focused down the hall. He didn't see her because she wasn't moving, and her thermal signature was dampened by the cold wall she was pressed against. The second man followed. 3 paces behind, Meredith moved. It wasn't a rush. It was a violent, controlled snap. She stepped out behind the second man. Before he could register the movement, her left hand clamped over his mouth, pulled his head back sharply to expose the neck. The suppressed Glock in her right hand uttered a soft pfft. The subsonic round entered just below the ear, severed the brainstem, instant neural shutdown. The man went limp. She lowered him silently to the linoleum. Didn't let his gear clatter, didn't let his weapon hit the floor. Total silence except for the distant gunfire from the main lobby. The point man ahead stopped. He sensed it, the break in rhythm, the sudden absence of footsteps behind him. He began to turn, his rifle swinging around. Meredith didn't hesitate. She raised the Glock, acquired the sight picture in the dim red light, fired. The round took him just under the rim of his helmet. Same spot, same result. He dropped straight down, dead before he hit the floor. 2 down. At least 22 to go. She scavenged quickly, took a fragmentation grenade from the first man's vest. Spare magazine for his carbine. Didn't take the rifle itself. Too bulky for the tight maneuvering she planned. She moved deeper into the hospital, heading toward the main lobby where the primary firefight was raging. The sound of automatic gunfire was deafening now. Agent Sutton and his people were holding, but the sheer volume of fire meant they were pinned, suppressed, running out of ammunition and options. In the main triage bay, chaos reigned. Dr. Holloway was huddled behind the overturned reception desk, his hands pressed hard on Natalie Brennan's chest wound, trying to keep her alive through sheer force of will. "Keep pressure," he yelled at a resident. "Don't let go." A burst from a light machine gun tore apart the waiting room chairs 10 feet away. Splinters and foam rained down on them. Holloway yelped and ducked lower. Outside in the rain-soaked staging area, the mercenary leader stared at his tactical tablet. His name was Nikolai Volkov, 48 years old, former British SAS, dishonorably discharged after an incident in Afghanistan that was still classified. He'd gone private, made millions, cared about nothing except the contract and the money. 2 of his unit icons in the East Wing had just gone black. Team 2 report. Static. Team 2, this is Volkov. Status now. Nothing. He narrowed his ice-blue eyes. Something's wrong. It's too quiet on the flank. He keyed another frequency. Decker, take 4 men. Push through the East Wing, find out what happened to Team 2, and watch the corners. We might have a rat in the walls. Back inside, Meredith had reached the junction where the East Wing met the main lobby. She peered around the corner at floor level. The scene was grim. Sutton was behind a concrete pillar firing controlled bursts. 1 FBI agent was down, motionless, pool of blood spreading beneath him. Another agent was dragged behind a vending machine clutching a shoulder wound. Only Sutton and 1 other were still in the fight. 6 mercenaries were advancing across the lobby, moving from cover to cover. Professional, disciplined, suppressing the agents with overwhelming firepower. They were closing the noose. If Meredith opened fire with the pistol now, she'd take down maybe 2. The other 4 would light her up instantly. She needed a distraction. She looked at the fragmentation grenade she'd taken, pulled the pin, held the spoon down. Timing was everything. She rolled the grenade down the hallway, aiming for a gap between the mercenaries' cover positions. It clattered loudly on the tile floor. "Frag out!" one of the mercenaries screamed. They dove for cover. The explosion was deafening in the confined space. Shrapnel tore through furniture and drywall. The red emergency lights flickered and died completely, plunging the lobby into absolute darkness, save for the strobing muzzle flashes. The mercenaries, temporarily deafened and disoriented, scrambled to activate their NVGs. That 3-second window was all Meredith needed, but she didn't attack the mercenaries. She sprinted across the open hallway behind them, moving toward her real objective, the supply closet, the rifle. "Contact rear!" "Someone crossed the hall," a mercenary yelled. They fired blindly into the darkness where she'd been, but she was already gone. She slammed back into the supply closet, bolted the door. Her chest heaved. The Glock was getting hot. She holstered it, turned to the Chaytak M200. It was a massive weapon, almost absurd for indoor combat, designed to kill people from over a mile away. But right now, it was the only thing she had that could punch through the heavy ceramic body armor the mercenaries were wearing. She grabbed a magazine, loaded with .408 Chaytak solid brass rounds, each one capable of disabling an engine block. She slammed it into the magwell, racked the enormous bolt. The sound was heavy, mechanical, a promise of absolute destruction. She wasn't a nurse anymore. She wasn't even just a soldier. She was the apex predator. She kicked the supply closet door open, stepped back into the hallway, the massive rifle shouldered. Down the hall, the second team Decker and 4 men was advancing cautiously, stepping over the bodies of their comrades that Meredith had killed earlier. Volkov, we found Team 2, both KIA headshots. Clean. Decker's voice was shaky. This isn't random fire. Someone knows what they're doing. Push forward, Volkov commanded through the radio. Find them. Decker turned the corner. At the far end of the 50-foot hallway, illuminated by the flickering emergency light, he saw a silhouette, a woman, gray hair coming loose from its bun, black undershirt, holding a rifle that looked bigger than she was. Before Decker could raise his weapon, Meredith fired. The roar of the unsuppressed Chaytak inside the hallway was indescribable. It was a physical blow, a shockwave that shook dust from the ceiling tiles. Ears didn't just ring, they screamed. The .408 round hit Decker's center mass. The expensive ceramic plate on his chest didn't just crack. It disintegrated. The kinetic energy over 10,000 foot-pounds lifted him off his feet, threw him backward into the 2 men behind him. They all went down in a tangle of limbs and shattered armor. Silence followed, save for the ringing in everyone's ears. Meredith cycled the bolt, the massive brass casing ejected with a clang onto the floor. She chambered another round, her voice carried down the hallway, raspy, calm, terrifying. You have 10 seconds to leave my hospital. After that, I stop aiming for center mass. The remaining mercenaries in the hallway scrambled back around the corner, dragging Decker's ruined body with them. They were hired killers, used to overwhelming force and superior firepower. But they weren't used to facing anti-material rifles in close quarters. They weren't used to someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Outside, Volkov heard the shot through the walls. He knew that sound. He'd heard it in Helmand province, in Mogadishu, in a dozen other hellholes. RPG, he roared over the comms. Bring up the RP, they have a goddamn sniper rifle in there. Meredith knew she couldn't stay static. The Chaytak was powerful but slow. She was outflanked, outnumbered. She needed to link up with Sutton. She slung the massive rifle across her back, nearly 30 pounds biting into her shoulders. Drew the Glock again. Moved toward the lobby through an alternate route, through the ruined cafeteria, over broken chairs and shattered dishes. In the lobby, the tide had turned momentarily. The grenade, the thunderous rifle shot, it had spooked the advancing mercenaries. They'd pulled back to the entryway, taking cover behind the overturned security desk. Regrouping, Agent Sutton was bleeding from 2 new wounds, one in his thigh, one grazing his non-shooting arm. He was down to his last magazine. Sound off, he yelled to his remaining agent. Still here, sir. Down to 30 rounds. Sutton wiped blood out of his eyes. They were dead. It was just a matter of time. The enemy was regrouping for a final push. Suddenly, a figure materialized from the shadows to his left, sliding across the floor to take cover behind a thick structural column next to him. Sutton almost shot her. He stared. His brain struggled to process the image. It was the nurse, Meredith, the gray-haired, quiet woman who checked IVs and restocked supplies. But she wasn't wearing scrubs now. She was in tactical black, moving with lethal grace. And strapped to her back was a Chaytak M200, a weapon Sutton had only seen used by extreme long-range specialists. Nurse Crane, he breathed. Focus, Agent, Meredith said. Her eyes scanned the enemy positions across the lobby. She didn't look at him. She raised the Glock, fired 2 quick shots that forced a mercenary's head back down. Where the hell did you get that hardware? Supply closet. That's not funny. Wasn't joking. She holstered the Glock, started pulling the massive rifle off her back. They're setting up a heavy weapon at the door. Looks like an M240. If they get that mounted, they'll turn this lobby into sawdust. Sutton looked. Sure enough, 2 men were mounting a belt-fed machine gun on the reception desk. We can't stop that with small arms. You can't, Meredith corrected. She swung the rifle around. The space behind the pillar was tight. She had to angle her body precariously to get the barrel around the concrete edge without exposing herself. "Cover me!" It wasn't a request. It was a command, one professional to another. Sutton didn't argue. He leaned out and dumped half his remaining magazine toward the door. Drawing fire, bullets chipped the concrete inches from Meredith's face, spraying her with silica dust. She didn't flinch. She looked through the high-powered scope. At this close range, barely 60 feet, the field of view was incredibly narrow. All she could see was the receiver of the machine gun and the hands of the man loading the belt. She breathed out, steadying the 29-pound rifle freehand, adjusted her aim slightly, not targeting the man, targeting the weapon itself, specifically the feed tray mechanism. She squeezed the trigger. Boom! The shot was deafening. The 408 solid brass round slammed into the receiver of the M240 machine gun. The impact was catastrophic. The machine gun didn't just break, it exploded. Metal fragments, springs, shrapnel. The man loading it screamed as twisted metal tore into his face and chest. He fell backward, clutching his ruined face. The heavy weapon threat was neutralized. Meredith cycled the bolt, the massive action clunking loudly. Sutton stared at her. The red emergency light deepened the shadows on her face, made her look ancient, terrifying. He suddenly realized where he'd seen that eerie calm before years ago. A joint task force briefing in Virginia. A blurred photo on a screen. A Delta asset credited with impossible shots in impossible conditions. Codename Wraith. The program had been shuttered after a disastrous mission in Syria. Everyone presumed KIA. "My God," he whispered. The realization hit him harder than a bullet. You're Alexandra Devereaux, the Syria Initiative." Meredith looked at him then. Her eyes, usually so dull, were hard as diamonds. "That woman died 6 years ago, Agent. Right now I'm the only thing keeping you alive. Are we clear?" Sutton swallowed hard. The protocol part of his brain wanted to arrest her for being AWOL, for falsifying her identity, for a dozen federal crimes. The survival part of his brain wanted to kiss her boots. "Crystal clear," he said. "What's the play?" Before Meredith could answer, a new sound cut through the night. Not gunfire, a low, rhythmic, whooping sound coming from the rear of the hospital. Meredith's head snapped toward the sound. "Helicopter, inbound, low." "Friendly?" Sutton asked, hope flaring. "No, yeah." Meredith's face was grim. "They're not here to rescue us. They're here to extract Brennan the hard way." Volkov had realized he couldn't take the lobby with Meredith covering it. He was changing tactics. He was bringing in an extraction team directly through the roof of the trauma bay, where Dr. Holloway was hiding with the target. "They're going for the roof," Meredith said, already moving. "If they breach the ceiling in triage, everyone in there dies." She didn't wait for Sutton. She took off at a dead run back toward the triage bay, lugging the giant rifle. "Private on me," Sutton yelled to his remaining agent. "We push the front door now." He realized what Meredith had just done. She'd left the front door entirely unguarded to save the others. She'd made a choice. Save the many, risk the few. That was the soldier's calculus. Meredith burst into the triage bay just as the sound of rotor blades became deafening directly overhead. Dust and ceiling tiles began to rain down on Dr. Holloway, who was still hunched over Natalie Brennan. "They're landing on the roof," a resident screamed. "Move her," Meredith shouted. "Get her under the door frame. Reinforce structure. Move." Holloway dragged the unconscious woman just as a massive section of drywall ceiling collapsed inward. Ropes dropped through the gaping hole, followed instantly by 4 operatives in black rappel harnesses, swinging down into the center of the room like spiders descending on silk. They landed heavily, weapons raised, lasers sweeping the dust-filled room. They weren't expecting the nurse in the corner holding a cannon. Meredith didn't have time to aim carefully. She hip-fired the Chaytak at the first man whose feet touched the floor. The round hit him in the thigh. It didn't just wound him. It severed the leg completely. Mid-thigh, femoral artery pumping blood onto the white tile in rhythmic spurts. He collapsed with a horrific shriek. The other 3 operatives spun toward her, submachine guns opening up. Meredith dove behind a heavy surgical instrument cart. Bullets sparked off the metal. She was pinned down. The massive rifle useless for quick follow-up shots in this swirling dust cloud. One of the operatives, a giant of a man, ignored her, lunged for Natalie Brennan, grabbed the unconscious woman by her suit jacket, hauled her toward the hoisting ropes. "No," Dr. Holloway yelled, grabbed the woman's legs, trying to pull her back. The operative backhanded Holloway with the butt of his rifle, sent the doctor sprawling across the floor. Dazed, bleeding from a split lip, Meredith peered around the cart. The operative was clipping a harness to Brennan. In 10 seconds, they'd winch her up into the helicopter. Gone. She couldn't get a clear shot with the Chaytak without hitting Brennan. Her pistol was out of ammunition. She saw Holloway on the floor, his hand near a tray of surgical instruments. "Holloway!" she screamed over the rotor noise. "The scalpel! Throw me the scalpel!" Holloway, dazed, looked at her, then down at the tray. He grabbed a surgical scalpel, skidded it across the blood-slicked floor toward her. Meredith snatched it up. It was a ridiculous weapon against men in body armor. But she didn't need a big weapon. She just needed an opening. She stood up from behind the cart, completely exposed, launching herself at the operative holding Brennan. The operative saw her coming. A middle-aged woman with a tiny blade. He smirked beneath his balaclava, raised his rifle to finish her. He underestimated the speed of the Wraith. She slapped the rifle barrel aside with her left hand, stepped inside his guard. With her right hand, she didn't stab. She slashed. A precise, shallow cut across the exposed skin of his neck, just above the line of his body armor, right where the carotid artery pulsed. It was a surgical strike, delivered with the speed of a viper. The operative gasped. His hands flew to his neck. Blood sprayed between his fingers. He staggered back, released Brennan. Meredith spun, grabbed Brennan's collar, dragged her back under the cover of the doorframe, just as the other two operatives opened fire on her position. Rounds shredded the air where she'd been standing a second before. She was trapped, out of ammunition, out of options, with a high-value target and two terrified civilians, facing down two elite killers while a helicopter hovered overhead. And then Natalie Brennan's eyes fluttered open. She looked up, groggy, pain-filled eyes focusing on the woman leaning over her, the woman with the gray bun and the face smeared with dust and blood. Her eyes widened in impossible recognition. "Agent 49, she wheezed, coughing blood. "Alexandra, they said you were dead in Syria." Meredith stared down at her, the sounds of the firefight fading for just a second. "I am dead," she whispered. "Now stay down if you want to keep it that way." A voice echoed through the hospital's PA system. Deep, accented, British, Nikolai Volkov. "Alexandra Devereaux, also known as Agent 49, also known as the Wraith. I know who you are. I've read your file. Syria, Yemen, a dozen other black sites." Meredith's jaw tightened. "You're good, I'll give you that. But you're one woman. I have 20 men left. You have no ammunition, no support, no way out." Silence, then surrender. "I'll make it quick. You have my word as a professional." Meredith didn't answer. She was looking at the door, at a figure standing in the doorway, an older man, 60s, gray hair, hospital gown. One arm in a sling from a gunshot wound. Colonel Silas Caldwell. He held an M1911 pistol in his good hand. Their eyes met, after 6 years, after Syria, after everything. "Hello, Alexandra," he said quietly. And part one ended with two ghosts staring at each other across a room full of blood and fire. The triage bay was a cauldron of noise and chaos. Helicopter rotors beat the air into a frenzy above them. Dust swirled like a sandstorm. The two remaining operatives had their submachine guns trained on Meredith's position behind the doorframe. But everyone had frozen, because Colonel Silas Caldwell had just entered the room with a loaded weapon. Meredith's eyes locked onto his. 6 years of questions, 6 years of rage, 6 years of guilt, all compressed into a single moment of recognition. "Colonel," she said, her voice was flat, "dead. Come to finish what you started in Syria." Caldwell limped forward. The hospital gown was stained with blood from his shoulder wound, but his hand holding the M1911 was steady, rock steady, the hand of a man who'd held weapons for 40 years. "No, Alexandra, I came to help." The operative nearest to him spun, raised his weapon. Caldwell shot him without hesitation. 2 rounds, center mass. The man went down hard. The last operative fired at Caldwell, missed. Meredith used the distraction, rolled forward, grabbed the fallen operative's submachine gun, came up firing. The last man dropped. Silence fell, save for the helicopter above, its crew realizing the extraction had failed. The pilot pulled up. The chopper banked hard, disappeared into the storm. Meredith stood, the submachine gun pointed at Caldwell. "Give me one reason not to kill you right now." Caldwell lowered his pistol, didn't drop it, just lowered it. "Because you need me. And because those 17 people who died in Syria, that blood is on my hands, not yours. I gave the order. I pulled your trigger. You didn't pull anything. I made the shot. Under my command, following my orders. He took a step closer. I've lived with that for 6 years, Alexandra. Every single day, every child's face. I see them when I close my eyes. Just like you do. Meredith's finger tightened on the trigger. Dr. Holloway was pressed against the wall, watching, not understanding any of this, but smart enough to stay silent. Why are you here? Meredith asked. I'm dying, pancreatic cancer, stage 4, 3 months if I'm lucky. Caldwell's voice was calm, matter of fact. I came to give you what you've been looking for. Redemption. There's no redemption for what we did. Maybe not, but there's balance. He gestured toward Natalie Brennan, toward the hospital. 15 innocent people in this building tonight. If they die, that's on both of us. If they live, maybe God counts it for something. God stopped listening to me a long time ago. Then do it for yourself. Caldwell's eyes were hard. I didn't hire these mercenaries, Alexandra. I'm not the enemy here, but I know who is, and I know how to stop them. Meredith studied his face, looking for the lie, the deception. She saw only exhaustion and truth. Who hired them? Agent Sutton. Meredith's blood went cold. The FBI agent is working for Meridian Corporation. The same people Brennan is testifying against. He's been feeding them information. Routes, safe houses, everything. Caldwell lowered his pistol completely now, holstered it. That's why the convoy was ambushed. Why the mercenaries knew exactly where to hit. Sutton set it up. How do you know this? Because I still have friends in the intelligence community, friends who owed me favors. When I heard about the Brennan transfer, I started digging, found Sutton's offshore accounts, found the money trail. He met her eyes. I came here to warn you, to help you, because I owe you that much. Footsteps in the hallway. Meredith spun. Sutton appeared in the doorway, rifle raised, blood streaming down his face from a head wound. Behind him, his remaining agent. Both looked like they'd been through hell. Brennan secure? Sutton asked. His eyes swept the room, saw the dead operatives, saw Caldwell. His expression didn't change. For now, Meredith said. She still held the submachine gun, but not pointed at anyone. Yet. Sutton's radio crackled. A voice came through. Volkov. Sutton, extraction failed. We're pulling back to regroup. You still have control of the interior. Sutton's eyes flicked to Meredith, to Caldwell. He made a decision, keyed his radio. Negative, the target is secure. Situation contained. Stand down and await further orders. He released the transmit button. Volkov's response was immediate. You're burning me, Sutton. That wasn't the deal. The deal changed when you lost half your team to one woman with a rifle. I'm not paying you to fail. Sutton's voice was cold, professional. Extract your men. I'll handle cleanup. You're a dead man, Sutton. Get in line. He switched off the radio, looked at Meredith. You're the Wraith, Alexandra Devereaux. I've read the classified files. Syria, the school, 17 dead. His face was unreadable. You've been hiding here for 6 months, flying under every radar, living as a ghost. And you've been taking bribes from Meridian for 3 years, Meredith countered. $50,000 a month, plus bonuses for special operations. Like tonight. Sutton's jaw tightened. Colonel Caldwell has been very informative, Meredith continued. Bank accounts, wire transfers, encrypted communications, all documented, all ready to be delivered to the Justice Department if anything happens to anyone in this building. It was a bluff, mostly. She had no idea what evidence Caldwell actually had, but Sutton didn't know that. Here's what's going to happen, Meredith said. You're going to call off your mercenaries. You're going to ensure Natalie Brennan gets to testify, and you're going to turn yourself in. Sutton laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Or what? You'll shoot a federal agent in front of witnesses, that'll get you life in prison. If they don't execute you for treason first. I died 6 years ago, Agent. Prison doesn't scare me. Meredith raised the submachine gun. What should scare you is the fact that I've already killed 14 men tonight. What's one more? The room held its breath. Caldwell spoke quietly. There's a third option, Sutton. One that doesn't end with everyone dead. I'm listening. You give me the evidence against Meridian. All of it. Every file, every transaction. I deliver it to the Inspector General personally. You get immunity, witness protection. A new life somewhere warm. Caldwell's voice was reasonable, calm. Or we all die here tonight and nobody wins. Sutton considered, the calculation playing out behind his eyes. Finally, he lowered his rifle. The files are encrypted on a secure server. I'm the only one with the access codes. Then you'll give them to me. After I'm safe, after I'm in witness protection. No, Meredith's voice cut like a blade. Now, or I'll make sure the mercenaries outside know you just betrayed them. Let's see how long you last against 20 angry contractors who feel cheated. Sutton's face went pale. He'd made too many enemies tonight, on both sides. Fine. My phone password is 87432. Files are in an app called Secure Drop. Unlock code is my badge number backward. Caldwell moved it forward, took Sutton's phone, started working on it. You just signed your own death warrant, Sutton said to Meredith. Meridian has people everywhere. FBI, DOJ, Congress. They'll find you, they always do. Let them try. Caldwell looked up from the phone. Got it. Jesus Christ, Sutton. There's 200 gigabytes here. Spreadsheets, wire transfers, emails. This goes all the way to the Senate Appropriations Committee. Told you, this is bigger than you think. A massive explosion rocked the building. Everyone hit the floor. Meredith was up first. What was that front entrance? Sutton's remaining agent said. He was looking at a handheld radio. Mercenaries just breached with explosives. They're not pulling back. They're coming in. Volkov doesn't trust you to clean this up, Meredith said to Sutton. He's going to kill everyone, including you. Can't leave witnesses to a failed op. Sutton's face hardened. How many? At least 10 left, maybe 12. The agent checked his ammunition. We're down to 3 magazines total. No heavy weapons, no support. Caldwell closed Sutton's phone, pocketed it. Then we make a stand. Here, in the triage bay. Reinforced walls, limited entry points. Or we run, Sutton said. Get Brennan out the back. Use the staff exit. Get to the vehicle. Volkov will have that covered, Meredith interrupted. He's not stupid. He'll have teams on every exit. We run, we die in the parking lot. So we just wait here to die. No. Meredith walked to the wall, started pulling down medical equipment, IV stands, gurneys. We turn this room into a fortress. We use what we have. Dr. Holloway finally found his voice. What about the other patients? The staff Eleanor is locked in the supply room. Mrs. Gable is in recovery. We can't just... They're safer where they are, Meredith said. Volkov wants Brennan. Everyone else is secondary. As long as we keep him focused here, the others have a chance. She looked at Caldwell, really looked at him. You sure you want to do this, Colonel? You've got 3 months to live. Could spend it somewhere peaceful. Caldwell smiled, grim. I've spent 6 years trying to die with a clean conscience. Hasn't worked yet. Maybe dying to save people will do the trick. Maybe. The sound of boots, multiple hostiles, moving through the hospital corridors. Meredith checked her weapons. The Chaytak was too unwieldy for close quarters defense. She set it aside, took the submachine gun, checked the magazine, 20 rounds. Caldwell had his M1911, 7 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. Sutton had his rifle, 30 rounds. His agent had a pistol, 15 rounds, against 12 mercenaries with automatic weapons and body armor. The math was bad. I need you to understand something, Meredith said to everyone in the room. I've done this before. Urban defense. Outnumbered. Outgunned. I know how to win. How? Holloway asked. By making them think we're already dead. She started moving with purpose, dragging bodies, positioning them, creating the appearance of a massacre. Blood, chaos. She smeared her own blood across the floor, made it look like a slaughter had already happened. When they come through that door, she said, they need to see corpses. They need to think the job is done. Then we hit them while they're relaxed. That's insane, Sutton said. That's survival. Caldwell understood immediately. He started helping, positioning bodies, creating the scene. Everyone get down, under the gurneys. Stay absolutely still. Don't breathe loud. Don't move. Meredith's voice was command, pure authority. When I give the signal, you come up shooting. Not before, understood? Nods all around. They positioned themselves. Meredith went last, laid down behind an overturned surgical tray. The submachine gun hidden beneath her body, covered in blood and dust. She looked dead. They waited. Footsteps approached. The door burst open. 3 mercenaries entered, weapons raised, sweeping the room. They saw carnage, bodies everywhere, blood, spent brass, the aftermath of a brutal firefight. Clear, one said. They're all dead. Check for Brennan. Volkov wants confirmation. The mercenaries moved into the room, lowered their weapons slightly, started checking bodies. One bent down near Natalie Brennan's position. Meredith's eyes were open, the bare sliver, watching, waiting. The mercenary reached for Brennan. Meredith moved. She came up firing. The submachine gun roared. Point-blank range. The mercenary went down. Caldwell rose from his position. The M1911 barked twice, another mercenary fell. Sutton's rifle opened up. The third man tried to run. Didn't make it. Silence. 3 more dead. Reload, Meredith ordered. They'll send more. But they didn't. Instead, Volkov's voice came over a bullhorn from outside the building. Very clever, Devereaux. I underestimated you. Won't happen again. Meredith moved to the window, peered out carefully. Volkov stood into the parking lot, surrounded by his remaining men, 9 of them, all armed, all ready. I'm giving you one chance, Volkov called. Send out Brennan. Everyone else walks. You have my word. Your word means nothing, Meredith shouted back. True, but your options are limited. I have 9 men. You have maybe 60 rounds of ammunition total. I can wait you out, or I can burn the building down. Either way, Brennan doesn't testify. Meredith looked at Caldwell, at Sutton, at Holloway. He's right, Sutton said quietly. We can't win this. Yes, we can. Caldwell's voice was certain. But not all of us walk away. What are you talking about? The old colonel smiled, sad, resigned. I'm talking about the fact that I'm already dead. Cancer, remember, 3 months. Probably less given the blood I've lost tonight. He checked his pistol. So I'm going to give you all something. Time. No, Meredith said. She knew where this was going. Yes. Caldwell met her eyes. Syria was my fault. Those children died because of my order. I can't fix that. But I can make sure these people live. 15 lives, Alexandra. That's the balance we talked about. You can't. I can, and I will. He moved toward the door. I'm going to walk out there, surrender. Tell them Brennan died in the firefight. While they're dealing with me, you take the staff exit. Get everyone out. Get Brennan to safety. They'll kill you. I know. Alice, he stopped. She'd used his first name. First time in 6 years. Thank you, Alexandra, for giving me this chance. He smiled. See you on the other side. Tell those 17 kids I'm sorry and that I'm trying to make it right. He walked out before she could stop him. Meredith watched through the window. Caldwell emerged from the building, hands raised, walking slowly toward Volkov. I'm Colonel Silas Caldwell, United States Army, retired. The woman you want, Natalie Brennan, is dead. Died in the firefight. It's over. Volkov studied him. You're lying. I'm dying. Stage 4 cancer. Why would I lie? Where's Devereaux? Dead too. Took a round from your men. Bodies inside. Volkov didn't believe him, but he was curious enough to listen. Search the building, he ordered his men. Find Brennan's body. Confirm. While his team moved toward the hospital, Volkov kept his weapon on Caldwell. You're the one who gave the order in Syria. I read about it. Black site files. You ordered a civilian building destroyed. Children died. Yes. And you lived with that. No, I died with it. Just took my body 6 years to catch up. Inside, Meredith was moving fast. We have maybe 3 minutes before they realize he's lying. Get Brennan up. Get Holloway. We move now. Sutton grabbed Natalie Brennan, still unconscious, threw her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. They moved to the rear of the building, the staff exit Meredith had scouted on her first day. Always have an exit. Always have a plan. The door was locked from the inside. She kicked it open. Night air rushed in, cold, clean. They could hear Volkov's voice from the front, still interrogating Caldwell. Go, Meredith ordered. Straight to the tree line. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? Holloway asked. I'm buying you more time. Meredith, go. They ran. Meredith stayed behind, grabbed the Chaytak rifle she'd retrieved, moved to a window with a clear sight line to the parking lot. She could see Caldwell, on his knees now, Volkov standing over him. One of the mercenaries ran out from the building. Sir Brennan's not inside, neither is Devereaux. They're gone. Volkov's face twisted in rage. He pointed his weapon at Caldwell's head. Where are they? Gone. And you failed. Caldwell smiled. Some professional you are. Volkov pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed across the mountains. Caldwell fell. Meredith didn't flinch, didn't cry, just watched. Counted to 3. Then she fired. The Chaytak round crossed 200 yards in under half a second. It hit the fuel tank of Volkov's tactical vehicle. The explosion was massive. A fireball erupted, consumed 3 of Volkov's men instantly. The shockwave knocked the others down. Volkov himself was thrown 20 feet, landed hard, didn't get up. Meredith cycled the bolt, fired again, hit the second vehicle. Another explosion. The remaining mercenaries scattered, running for cover. running for their lives. Meredith didn't pursue, didn't need to. She'd bought the time Caldwell had paid for with his life. She slung the rifle across her back, walked out the staff exit into the night, found Sutton and Holloway in the tree line. Brennan between them, conscious now, barely. Is he? Sutton didn't finish the question. Yes. I'm sorry. Don't be. He got what he wanted. In the distance, sirens. Finally, the explosions had been impossible to miss. Local police, fire department, maybe even state police. Real help was coming. Too late for Caldwell, but in time for everyone else. We need to move, Meredith said, before they arrive, before questions get asked. Where? Holloway asked. There's a hunting cabin 2 miles north, abandoned. We hole up there until morning. Then we figure out next steps. They moved through the forest, slowly. Brennan needed rest every 100 yards. Behind them, Miller's Ridgefield Hospital burned. Not completely, but enough. Enough to destroy records, enough to create confusion, enough to let a ghost disappear. Again. They reached the cabin as dawn broke over the mountains. Inside was sparse, dusty, but dry and hidden. Meredith laid Brennan on an old cot, checked her vitals. The woman was stable. The bleeding had stopped. She'd need surgery eventually, but she'd live. Thank you, Brennan whispered. Agent 49. That's not my name anymore. Then what do I call you? Nothing, because after today you never saw me. Meredith looked at Sutton, at Holloway. None of you did. We can't just, yes you can, you will, because if anyone asks, I died in that hospital. Understood? Holloway nodded slowly. What about Caldwell? What do we tell them? The truth. He was a patient, got caught in the crossfire, died a hero trying to protect people. Meredith's voice was flat. That's all anyone needs to know. Sutton pulled out his phone, the one Caldwell had taken, had worked on. The files, the evidence against Meridian. It's all here, enough to bring down 50 people, maybe more. Then use it. Make sure Brennan testifies. Make sure it counts. What about you? What about me? You just saved a federal witness, stopped a terrorist attack, killed 24 mercenaries. You're a hero. Meredith laughed, no humor in it. I'm a woman who's been dead for 6 years, Agent. I'd like to stay that way. She walked to the door, looked out at the sunrise. There's a FBI field office in Charleston, 30 miles west. You can make it by noon if you start now. Take Brennan, turn over the evidence. Tell them everything except the part about me. And if they ask who saved us, tell them it was Caldwell. Tell them the old colonel went out fighting. Give him that much. Sutton stood, extended his hand. Thank you, for what it's worth. Meredith looked at his hand, didn't take it. It's worth 15 lives, Agent, that's all. She walked out of the cabin. Holloway followed her outside. Meredith, wait. She stopped, didn't turn around. I don't understand any of this, who you are, what you were, but I saw what you did tonight. You saved all of us. You should be proud. Pride's a luxury I can't afford, Doctor. Then what? You just disappear, start over somewhere else. That's the plan. Is it lonely living like that? Meredith finally turned, looked at him, really looked at him, every single day, but it's better than the alternative, which is remembering. She walked away, into the forest, into the morning mist. Doctor. Garrett Holloway watched her go. This strange, terrifying, magnificent woman who'd appeared in his hospital 6 months ago. Who'd saved his life. Who'd saved everyone. He'd never see her again, none of them would. Because Meredith Crane had just died in Miller's Ridgefield Hospital, along with Colonel Silas Caldwell, along with Alexandra Devereaux. 3 ghosts, 3 deaths, 3 endings. And somewhere in the mountains of West Virginia, a woman with no name walked alone, carrying the weight of 17 children from Syria, carrying the memory of an old soldier who'd finally found his redemption, carrying the burden of being the wraith, forever. The sun rose higher, burned away the mist, and the night nurse disappeared into legend. 3 months later, the Children's Hospital in Santa Fe, New Mexico smelled different from Miller's Ridge. Cleaner, newer. The walls were painted in cheerful colors, yellows and blues and soft greens. Murals of cartoon animals decorated the hallways. Everything designed to make sick children forget they were sick. But at 2 in the morning, when the day shift had gone home and the night shift settled into its rhythm, the hospital felt the same as any other. Quiet, dark, full of small battles between life and death. The woman who walked the corridors now had brown hair, shorter than before, cut in a practical bob that framed her face differently. She wore wire-rimmed glasses she didn't need. Her name tag read Sarah Mitchell, RN. Her eyes still held that fractured quality, like looking through broken glass at something sharp beneath. Sarah checked the IV on the little girl in room 208, 8 years old. Name was Sophia, rescued from a human trafficking ring 3 weeks ago, still waking up screaming, still flinching when anyone moved too fast. Can't sleep, sweetheart. Sarah's voice was gentle. Different from the clipped military tone she'd used as Meredith. Different from the cold efficiency she'd wielded as Alexandra. Sophia shook her head, clutched a stuffed rabbit that someone from victim services had given her. Are the bad men coming back? The girl's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. No, honey, they're not. How do you know? Because I won't let them. It was a promise she had no business making, but she made it anyway. Sophia studied her with those two old eyes, eyes that had seen things no child should see. You're different from the other nurses. How so, You're not scared. Sarah smiled, sad. Everyone's scared, Sophia. The trick is not letting the fear win. Were you ever scared? Every day. What did you do? I fought back. Sophia considered this, then nodded, like it made sense, like maybe she could fight back too someday. Sarah adjusted the blanket. Try to sleep. I'll be right outside if you need anything. She walked back to the nurse's station. The hospital was quiet, only 3 other staff on the entire floor, a resident doing paperwork, an orderly restocking supplies, another nurse dozing in the break room. Sarah pulled up Sophia's chart on the computer. The girl was healing, physically. The psychological scars would take years, maybe forever. But she was alive. That counted for something. Sarah thought about Caldwell, about his last words. 15 lives, that's the balance. She'd been counting since that night. Sophia made 16, one more than Syria. The math should have made her feel better. It didn't, because she knew the truth. There was no balance, no redemption, no washing away the blood. There was only forward, one patient at a time, one breath at a time. Her phone buzzed, not her personal phone, the encrypted one, the one she'd received 2 weeks after Miller's Ridge. The message was short. Package delivered. All 53 arrests made. Brennan testified yesterday. Jury deliberating now. Your friend would be proud. It was from Agent Caroline Torres, FBI. One of the few honest ones left. Torres had been the one to debrief Sutton, to take custody of Brennan, to sort through the evidence Caldwell had died protecting. Sarah typed back, "What about Sutton?" The response came immediately. "Witness protection, new name, somewhere warm. He'll never work in law enforcement again, but he's alive. He asked me to tell you thank you." Sarah stared at the message, then deleted it. Sutton had made his choices, lived with the consequences. That was more than most got. Another message from Torres appeared. "Brennan also asked about you. I told her the nurse died in the fire. She didn't believe me. Smart woman." Sarah allowed herself a small smile, then typed, "Let her think what she wants, as long as she stays alive to testify." "She will. I'm making sure of it personally." Good. That was good. Sarah pocketed the phone. Thought about that night 3 weeks after Miller's Ridge. The night Torres had found her. The meeting in the diner outside Albuquerque had been brief, professional. Torres had laid out the situation with the clarity of someone who'd thought it through carefully. "I know who you are. I know what you did. I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to offer you a choice." Sarah had almost walked away, but then Torres had said something that stopped her. "There are people the system can't protect. Witnesses, victims, the forgotten ones. They need someone who won't hesitate it when the protocols fail. Maybe they need you. Not a recruitment pitch, not a plea, just a statement of fact." Sarah had looked at her coffee, at her reflection in the dark liquid. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You work alone. Report to me only. When I call you, answer. When someone needs help, you help them. No questions, no hesitation, no official record. And if I'm compromised, then you disappear. We've never met. This conversation never happened." Sarah had thought about Miller's Ridge, about Ellie's face when she'd run to safety, about Dr. Holloway's shocked expression when he'd realized what she was, about all the people who'd lived because she'd fought. What was the first assignment? Torres had slid a folder across the table. A little girl named Sophia, rescued from traffickers. One of them made bail. He's coming back for her. We can't protect her officially. Too many legal complications. Sarah had opened the folder, seen Sophia's picture, 8 years old, bruises fading on her arms, eyes that looked 1,000 years old. When Tufan that done, he'll make his move within 72 hours. He has friends, resources, money. Torres had met her gaze. She needs someone who won't hesitate when the moment comes. Sarah had closed the folder. I'll take it. That had been 3 weeks ago. The man who trafficked Sophia had come back, just like Torres said he would. He'd made it to the hospital parking lot at 2:47 a.m. He never made it inside. Local police found his body in an alley 3 blocks away. Single gunshot wound, 9mm. No witnesses, no evidence. Case went cold within a week. Sophia stopped having nightmares after that, like some part of her knew she was safe, knew the monster wouldn't come back. Now Sarah stood in a quiet hospital and thought about the choice she'd made. Was it redemption? No. Was it justice? Maybe. Was it enough? It had to be, because it was all she had. Her encrypted phone buzzed again. New message from Torres. Situation developing. Phoenix, domestic violence victim. Ex-husband, violated restraining order. Has a gun. Police can't respond in time. Subject barricaded with 2 children. Need immediate intervention. Sarah looked at the address. 43 miles. She could be there in 35 minutes. She walked to the supply closet at the end of the hallway. Locked. Authorized personnel only. She'd made sure every hospital she worked at had one. Inside, behind the medical supplies, was a locked case. Chaytak M200 intervention. Disassembled. Cleaned. Ready. Glock 19. Suppressed. Loaded. Tactical vest. Black. Lightweight. Everything she needed. She looked at the rifle. Then at the address on her phone. Phoenix was urban. Residential. Close quarters. The Chaytak was overkill. She took the Glock instead, and a knife, and a small medical kit. Always be prepared to save a life, even as you take one. She locked the case, closed the closet, walked to the nurse's station. The resident looked up. Sarah, where are you going? Family emergency, can you cover my patients? Sure, but thank you. Sophia in 208 needs her vitals checked in an hour. She's scared. Be gentle. Sarah walked out before he could ask more questions. 43 miles to Phoenix. The address Torres had sent led to a small house in a working-class neighborhood. Lights blazing inside, shouting audible from the street. Sarah parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot, silent, invisible in the darkness. She could see through the window. A man, late 30s, drunk or high or both, waving a pistol. 2 children huddled behind a couch. A woman, their mother, trying to talk him down with her hands raised. Police sirens in the distance. 8 minutes away, maybe less. But the man with the gun wouldn't wait 8 minutes. Sarah could see it in his body language. The rage coiling tighter. The desperation. The finger trembling on the trigger. 5 minutes until police arrival. The man would shoot in 2. Sarah moved to the back door, picked the lock, muscle memory from a dozen black sights. Entered the house silent as smoke. The man was in the living room, back to her, still shouting, still waving the gun. You ruined everything, took my kids, destroyed my life. Please, Michael, please just put the gun down. No more talking. Sarah stepped into the doorway, dropped the weapon. Her voice was calm, quiet, but it cut through the chaos like a surgical blade. Michael spun, saw her, a woman, brown hair, glasses, nurse's scrubs. He laughed, hysterical. Who the hell are you? Someone who's had a very long night. Put the gun down, walk away, last chance. Or what? The children were crying now. Soft, terrified sounds. Sarah's hand moved to her side, where the Glock was holstered beneath her jacket. Or I make sure you never hurt anyone again. Michael raised his pistol, pointed it at her chest. Big talk from Sarah's Glock was already in her hand, already aimed. She fired once. The suppressed shot sounded like a cough. Nothing more. Michael dropped. The gun clattered from his hand. He clutched his shoulder, screaming, not dead, just disabled. Sarah walked forward, kicked his gun away, looked at the woman. Police are 90 seconds out. Tell them he broke in. Tell them you fought back. Tell them you shot him with his own gun in self-defense. I don't understand, Tom. Sarah pressed her Glock into the woman's trembling hands, wrapped her fingers around it, made sure her prints were on the grip. You shot him, protecting your children. That's the story. Do you understand? The woman stared at the gun, at Sarah, at her bleeding ex-husband writhing on the floor. Who are you? Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. Nobody. I was never here. She walked to the back door. 60 seconds later, police cars screeched to a stop outside. They found a terrified woman holding a gun, her ex-husband wounded on the floor. 2 children, safe. The woman told them exactly what Sarah had told her to say. Self-defense, protecting her family. The officers believed her, because it was the truth, mostly. Michael survived, went to prison, violated parole would add years to his sentence. The woman and her children went into counseling, started rebuilding, safe. Sarah drove back to Santa Fe as dawn broke over the desert, arrived at the hospital just as her shift was ending. Sophia was awake, sitting up in bed, drawing a picture. Miss Sarah, where'd you go? Just stepped out for some air, honey. How are you feeling? Better. I had a dream. Good dream or bad dream? Good. I dreamed there was an angel watching over me, and she had a sword, and she told the monsters they couldn't hurt me anymore. Sarah looked at the drawing, a stick figure woman with wings, and a sword made of crayons. That sounds like a very good dream. Do you think angels are real? Sarah thought about Caldwell, about the price he'd paid, about the 15 lives he'd saved with his last breath. Yes, she said quietly. I think they are. Even for people like me, especially for people like you. Sophia smiled, first real smile Sarah had seen from her. Sarah stayed until the girl fell asleep, then finished her charting, clocked out, walked to the parking lot as the sun climbed higher. Her phone buzzed. Torres, subject neutralized, family safe, well done. Next assignment in 2 weeks. Sarah deleted the message, started her truck, drove to the small apartment she rented, 1 bedroom, minimal furniture, no photographs, nothing personal. She showered, changed into civilian clothes, sat on the couch and stared at the wall. Her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but old habits. Yes, Sarah Mitchell, a woman's voice, young, scared. Who's asking? My name is Rebecca Hale. Agent Torres gave me this number. She said you help people when the system can't. Sarah sat forward. I'm listening. My sister witnessed a cartel execution. They're looking for her. The police can't protect her until trial, but trial is 6 months away. They're going to find her before then. Where is she now? Safe house in El Paso, but they found the last one. They have people everywhere. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't move. Don't call anyone else. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Sarah hung up, looked at her go bag, always packed, always ready. She should rest, should sleep. But she felt energized, focused, because she had a purpose. She grabbed the bag, headed for the door, paused, turned back to look at the empty apartment. It wasn't much, but it was hers. And for the first time in 6 years, that felt like something. Sarah locked the door, got in her truck, started the engine. 300 miles to El Paso. 300 miles to the next fight. The radio played softly. She didn't change the station. Mile markers ticked past, and Sarah Mitchell drove toward danger with her eyes open, because this was who she was now. Not a soldier, not a nurse, not a ghost, something in between. A guardian for the forgotten, a weapon for the defenseless. The night shift, her shift, forever. The sun climbed higher over the endless desert, and Sarah drove on. Ta-da. 6 months later, the report crossed WWII Director Margaret Wells's desk on a Tuesday morning. Subject: unusual pattern of protective incidents. Classified: 17 cases across 7 states. Witnesses who should have been killed. Victims who should have been silenced. Children who should have been lost. All survived, all with the same signature. Professional intervention. Military precision, 0 evidence. Just results. Director Wells read the report twice. Then she called Agent Caroline Torres. Torres entered the office with the carefully neutral expression of someone who knew exactly why they'd been summoned. Sir down, Caroline. Torres sat. Wells tapped the file. This pattern, you know something. I know the results speak for themselves, ma'am. Don't dance with me. Is there an operative, working off book? Torres met her gaze steadily. If there were, ma'am, it would be someone who doesn't exist on any official roster. Someone who died years ago. Someone the system failed. A vigilante. A guardian. Wells leaned back, studied her subordinate. If I ordered you to investigate, then I'd investigate, and I'd find nothing, because whoever this is, they're a ghost. Or you'd protect them. I'd protect the results. 17 innocent people alive who shouldn't be. That's not nothing. Silence filled the office. Wells closed the file. This conversation is off the record. Yes, ma'am. But Caroline, if you ever do contact this person, tell them something for me. Ma'am, tell them there are more of us than they think. People in the system who still give a damn. People who understand that sometimes the rules have to bend for justice to happen. Torres allowed herself a small smile. I will, ma'am. That night, she sent a message to an encrypted number. You have allies more than you know. Keep doing what you're doing. The response came 30 seconds later. Acknowledge. Torres pulled up a new case file. A teenage boy, witness to a gang execution, family in hiding. She typed the details, hit send, and somewhere in America, a woman with brown hair read the message, packed her bag, checked her weapon, and went to work. 18 months after Miller's Ridge. Dr. Garrett Holloway stood in the rebuilt Miller's Ridge Medical Center. The old field hospital was gone, replaced by a modern facility. State funding had poured in after the terrorist attack. New equipment, new staff, a fresh start. But Holloway couldn't shake the memory of that night. The gray-haired nurse who'd moved like a predator, who'd killed 14 men without hesitation, who'd saved everyone, then disappeared like she'd never existed. He'd been debriefed, of course. FBI, Homeland Security. So many questions. He'd told them the truth. Mostly. Yes, there was a nurse named Meredith Crane. Yes, she'd fought back. Yes, she'd died when the building partially collapsed. No, he didn't know anything else about her. The lie had tasted like ash, but he'd told it anyway. Because standing in that cabin in the woods, watching her walk away into the mist, he'd understood something. Some people were meant to disappear, meant to work in shadows, meant to be forgotten by everyone except those they saved. Now he trained young residents with a new philosophy. The textbook will tell you one thing, he'd say, but sometimes in the moment you have to trust your instincts. You have to do what's necessary, not what's protocol. His colleagues thought he'd changed after the attack, become less arrogant, more human. They were right, but they didn't know why. Only he knew about the gray-haired ghost who taught him that rules were made to be broken when lives were on the line. He hoped she was still out there, still fighting, still saving people. He'd never know for sure, but sometimes late at night he'd see a news story, a witness who survived impossible odds, a victim who escaped certain death, a child found when they should have been lost, and he'd wonder. Sure. 2 years after Miller's Ridge, Ellie Price sat in a coffee shop in Charleston scrolling through her phone. She was a psychiatric nurse now, working with trauma victims. The career change had come after that night, the night the hospital had been attacked, the night Meredith had saved her life. She'd never seen Meredith again. The official reports said she'd died in the fire. Body never recovered, presumed dead. But Ellie didn't believe it, because she remembered Meredith's eyes, the way she'd moved, the absolute certainty in her voice when she'd said, "Lock the door, don't open it for anyone but me." That wasn't someone who died easily. Her phone buzzed. News alert. Witness survives assassination attempt. Mysterious savior disappears. Ellie clicked the article. Read it quickly. A woman testifying against a drug cartel, attacked in protective custody. Someone had intervened. Professional, efficient, gone before police arrived. The description was vague, but something about it felt familiar. Ellie smiled, put down her phone, went back to work. Some heroes didn't need recognition, didn't need thanks. They just needed to know they were making a difference. Wherever you are, Meredith, Ellie thought, thank you. Present day. 3 years after Miller's Ridge, Sarah Mitchell stood in a hotel room in Houston. Different city, different name, same mission. The woman she'd just saved was sleeping in the next room, sedated, safe. Torres would move her to permanent protection in the morning. Sarah packed her bag, checked her weapon, prepared to disappear again. Her phone buzzed. Message from Torres. 26 lives saved in 3 years. You're building quite a legacy. Sarah stared at the number. 26. 9 more than Syria. The math still didn't balance, never would. But maybe that was the point. She typed back, it's not about the numbers. Torres, then what's it about? Sarah looked at the woman sleeping in the next room, at the case files on her laptop, at the growing list of people who were alive because she'd been there. She typed, it's about showing up every time, no matter what. Torres, that's good enough for me. Next assignment coming in 48 hours. Sarah closed her laptop, looked at herself in the mirror. 3 years of this, 3 years of fighting, 3 years of saving people the system couldn't protect. Her hair was darker now, cut shorter. She'd changed her appearance again last month. New contacts, new mannerisms, new identity, but her eyes remained the same. that fractured quality, like broken glass held together by will alone. She thought about Caldwell, about his last words. 15 lives. She'd saved 26. If he could see her now, would he be proud? Or would he tell her what she already knew? That counting didn't matter. That redemption wasn't a number. That the only thing that mattered was the choice to keep fighting. She picked up her bag, walked out of the hotel room. Into the night, another city waiting, another person who needed help, another chance to be the guardian in the darkness. This was her life now. Not Alexandria Devereaux, not Meredith Crane, Sarah Mitchell. And whoever came next. An endless cycle of names and faces and fights. But beneath it all, the same truth. She was the Wraith. And the Wraith never stopped hunting, never stopped protecting, never stopped fighting. For the forgotten, for the lost, for the ones the system left behind. Forever. Sarah got in her truck, started the engine. The road stretched ahead into darkness. And she drove toward it without hesitation. Because that's what guardians do. They show up, they fight, they save who they can, and they never ever stop until the very end.